I was 13 when they buried my grandfather, or at least, when they thought they did. What they lowered into the ground in San Miguel, New Mexico, had his badge, his uniform, and a jawbone that matched his dental records. That was enough for the state, but not for me, because 5 years later, I found something hidden in the crawl space under my childhood home. 3 tape recorders, 3 diaries, 3 voices, all of them claiming to be Walter Barnes, all of them sounding like him, and each one ending with the same line, "I didn't come back alone." No one believed the Navajo when they warned about Devil's Pass. They called it haunted, cursed, a place where the earth forgets what belongs to it. My grandfather, Sheriff Barnes, didn't care. He went in alone to investigate a disappearance. 4 days later, 3 men showed up claiming to be him. Each one had his badge, his memories, his scars, and each one insisted the other 2 were imposters. That's where the official story ends. But the real story, his story, was buried, hidden, until now. I've spent the last 2 years decoding the tapes, piecing together fragments from old police reports, forensic photos, security footage that was never supposed to exist. And what I found isn't just a mystery, it's a warning. If this recording ever makes it out into the world, know this: there are places that don't obey the rules of identity, places that can wear your name like a mask, places where something else can return in your body. So if you're still here, and this kind of story cuts a little too close, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and whatever you do, don't watch this alone. My grandfather was a man of habit. Every morning at 6:00 a.m., he shaved with a straight razor. He wore cologne that smelled like pine tar and whiskey. He ironed his uniform himself and never trusted the laundromat. Said they steal the sharp out of a man's collar. He wasn't the type to believe in ghosts. He didn't believe in anything he couldn't touch, shoot, or arrest. And that's exactly what got him killed. In the fall of 1998, something strange started happening near the New Mexico-Arizona border. Livestock were turning up, gutted with surgical precision. Tourists vanished off hiking trails that had been safe for decades. And people, mostly elders from the nearby Navajo communities, started refusing to leave their homes after sunset. They said something had been unlocked, something buried beneath the rocks, something old and angry. But the department didn't care about old stories. They blamed coyotes, drugs, dehydration. My grandfather, Sheriff Walter Barnes, went out there alone to prove them wrong. He packed light, just a sidearm, a tape recorder, and a topographic map. Told his deputy he'd be back by sundown. He never came back. What followed was 4 days of silence. No radio contact, no footprints. The dogs lost the scent at the entrance of a sandstone ravine locals call Devil's Pass, a place that doesn't appear on any official map, a place where compasses spin and echoes don't come back. And then, on the morning of the 5th day, 3 different men appeared at 3 different locations, all within 50 miles of that same ravine. Each one looked like Walter Barnes. Each one had a badge with the same number. Each one knew my mother's name. And that's when the town started to unravel. The first man stumbled out of the woods near Route 491 at sunrise. He was naked, barefoot, covered in dry blood that didn't belong to him. A trucker nearly ran him over, said the guy walked right into traffic and stared at the sky like it was whispering to him. At the hospital, he gave a name and badge number. Sheriff Walter Barnes, born April 17th, 1953. Blood type, O negative. He knew the name of the nurse's hometown. He asked for a cigar brand no one under 60 even remembers. His fingerprints matched the sheriff's. Then, 4 hours later, a second man showed up 28 miles away, knocking on the back door of a hunting lodge. He was wearing full uniform, perfectly pressed, and claimed he'd been lost in the woods for less than a day. He said, "I fell. I don't remember where, but I came back." The third man was found that night. He broke into the sheriff's office, disabling the back door alarm, and entering the evidence locker, using the correct security code, something only Barnes and his deputy knew. He was calm, silent. When arrested, he didn't resist. He just stared at the holding cell wall, like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. 3 men, same height, same build, same damn voice. Medical exams confirmed identical surgical scars, a healed, broken collarbone from an injury back in '88, and even the exact same molar fillings. But here's the thing that cracked me open. They each told a different version of what happened inside Devil's Pass. The first said he walked into a cave and woke up 3 days later on the highway. The second remembered a light behind the stone and something pulling at his spine. The third refused to speak at all until he whispered to my mother, "He's still in there. I'm just wearing what's left." None of them could explain the others. None of them knew why they weren't alone. And that's when the FBI showed up. Officially, the footage doesn't exist. The FBI scrubbed every camera feed in a 100-mile radius. They claimed the systems were malfunctioning due to solar flare interference. But they missed one, a deer cam. It was set up by a local hunter near Devil's Pass, rigged with night vision and infrared sensors. He never checked it until weeks later, when his dog refused to enter the woods again. That's when he found it. 12 seconds of corrupted video at 3:14 a.m. The footage is grainy, black and white, but the silhouette is clear. A man walks out of the tree line, barefoot, dragging a shadow that doesn't match his movement. His face flickers, like a screen with bad reception. First, it looks like Barnes, then like someone else, then back. And in the background, barely visible, 3 other shapes move in unison, just at the edge of the trees. The timestamp matches the night. All 3 men appeared. There's more. The dispatch logs from that night, also lost, according to the official reports, were recovered from a backup server. I listened to them over and over. One, in particular, still haunts me. It's the voice of Deputy Ellis, alone in the radio room, whispering into his mic. They're all saying the same thing, same badge, same memories, but it's not him. God help me. I don't think any of them are. Right after that, static, then screaming, then silence. Ellis disappeared 2 hours later. His cruiser was found overturned on a dry creek bed, with the engine still running and both front doors wide open. The seats were soaked in blood, but there were no footprints, not even his. And that's when my grandfather's journals began showing up, mailed to me in envelopes with no return address. My grandfather was a sheriff too. He served until 1982, when he resigned without explanation and vanished from public life. Most people thought he'd gone senile or paranoid, but his journals told a different story. The first envelope came wrapped in brown paper, smelling like damp cedar. Inside was a leather-bound notebook filled with sketches, diagrams, and passages in Latin. The first page had only a single line: "He walks the loop every 13 years." At first, I didn't understand, but as I read, the pattern began to emerge. In 1956, there were reports of 3 men claiming to be Sheriff Abram Keller, all identical, same uniform, same memories. One of them hanged himself in his cell. In 1969, it happened again. This time, the copies turned violent. 2 deputies were shot before all 3 men were found dead in the woods, locked in a circle of salt and bone. No one could explain how they got there. Each incident, 13 years apart, each involving a sheriff, each leaving behind bones and silence. The most chilling part? In every cycle, someone mailed a journal, always to the next generation of lawmen, always with the same message: he walks the loop. I dug deeper, called a contact in the archives department at Chapel Hill. She faxed me an autopsy photo from 1956. The body was labeled Sheriff Keller No. 2, and I swear to God, it was the same face as Barnes. Same scar over the brow, same left eye droop. Even the dental records matched. But Keller died in 56, and Barnes was born in 1972. I started to feel sick. This wasn't reincarnation. It wasn't a doppelganger. It was something older, like a looped broadcast, corrupted over time. Each sheriff was a copy of the last, ripped from memory, rebuilt by something that didn't fully understand what it was recreating. And somewhere deep in those woods, something was watching, waiting for the loop to complete, because it always completes. It's not a legend, it's a system, and I was already part of it. I returned to the woods, where Barnes had first been found, but this time I went alone. No backup, no flashlight, just the journal and a compass. The trees felt wrong, bent inward, like they were leaning over some buried truth. The air was cold, unnaturally so, even for November. And then I saw them, deer bones, arranged in perfect concentric rings, leading to a sunken clearing. At the center stood a stone slab, half buried in moss and mud. It was covered in symbols, not just carvings, gouged deep, like someone had clawed them in. I recognized a few from my grandfather's notebook. The spiral, the open eye, the backward sheriff's badge. Then I noticed something else. 3 bullet casings. One rusted, one still warm, one pristine. 3 iterations. A rustling behind me made me spin around, heart thundering. But there was no one, just wind, or so I thought. The slab began to vibrate, low at first, like the hum of a tuning fork, then louder, pulsing, until the trees themselves shivered. I stumbled back, and that's when I saw the figures, 3 of them, standing at the tree line, all wearing sheriff's uniforms, all looking exactly like Barnes. One held a shotgun, one held a badge, one held nothing. I froze. My instinct screamed to run, but something stronger rooted me. Curiosity? Duty? Or maybe the loop already had me too. The middle one, the one with the badge, stepped forward. His face was blank. No malice, no emotion. He raised a hand and pointed to the slab. I followed the gesture. Carved into the edge, almost hidden beneath lichen, was a name. Mine. That broke me. I turned and ran, tearing through the woods, branches clawing at my face. Didn't stop until I hit asphalt and collapsed under a flickering street lamp. But even there, I heard it. The hum, low, persistent, carried on the wind like a distant engine idling in the dark. The loop isn't about barns. It never was. It's about who comes next. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a motel off Route 71, one of those places where the wallpaper peels and the silence rings louder than traffic. I needed to think, to breathe, to pretend, just for a moment, that I wasn't part of something bigger than I could understand. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize myself, not metaphorically, literally. The man staring back had my face, my scars, even my tired eyes. But there was something wrong, something delayed. His blink came half a second too late. His head tilted opposite to mine, and when I raised my hand, he didn't move. He just smiled. I shattered the mirror with the motel lamp. Glass scattered everywhere. The reflection vanished, but the image stayed in my mind like afterburn. That night, I didn't sleep, just laid on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together who or what I was becoming. At 3:11 a.m., the motel phone rang. I answered without a word. Static. Then a voice. "Don't let him wear your skin." Click. I threw the phone across the room. The journal fell open on the floor, its pages fluttering as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. On one of them, scrawled hastily in my own handwriting, was a note I don't remember writing. "The self you abandon will walk without you." I drove back to town before sunrise, hoping to find answers. But when I stopped at the diner, something was off. The waitress, a girl I'd known since school, froze when she saw me. "You just left," she whispered. "You were here, sat right there, 10 minutes ago." I looked at the booth, coffee still steaming, my favorite table, the smell of my cologne in the air. I hadn't been there. I swear I hadn't. But someone who looked like me had. Worse, he hadn't paid. I found the last tape in an old metal box, buried beneath the floorboards of my grandfather's cabin. The label read simply, "Do not listen." But I couldn't resist. The voice on the recording was shaky, my grandfather's, but there was something off about it. Fear, confusion, something else, lurking beneath his words. He said he had failed to return whole, that there was something in the caves, a thing that wears faces like skins. It learns your name, watches your memories, and waits for the perfect moment to step out and wear you like a mask. He admitted he was trapped inside a loop, a prisoner of his own skin. He warned me not to trust what I might see if I followed him there. There were versions of him walking free, and none of them were real. The tape ended abruptly, replaced by static and faint whispers I couldn't make out. That night, the cabin felt alive, as if it was watching me. Then I heard footsteps outside. 3 figures appeared at the edge of the clearing, all dressed in my grandfather's sheriff uniform. They didn't speak or move like humans. Their eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. The middle figure raised a hand, pointed at me, then slowly lowered it. A voice echoed in my mind, not my grandfather's, but something far older, saying the loop completes, and the next one wears the badge. When morning came, the figures were gone, but the badge lay at my feet. I knew then this wasn't over. The loop is endless. Days after the encounter at the cabin, I started noticing things that didn't add up. A small birthmark appeared on my left hand, a mark I never had before. It was identical to the one my grandfather had. A crescent-shaped scar, he said, came from a childhood accident. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was just stress. But then the dreams began. In them, I was walking through Devil's Pass again, but the landscape shifted beneath my feet. The sky warped into unnatural colors, and whispers echoed from the rocks. Each dream ended the same way. A face in the shadows, smiling too wide, with eyes that weren't quite human. One morning, I woke up with dirt on my shoes. I live in an apartment downtown. There was no explanation for how it got there. That day, I stopped by the diner to grab coffee. The waitress froze when she saw me. "You were here earlier," she said softly. Sat right there, drinking coffee. I looked at the empty table, cold cup still steaming. "I haven't been here all day," I said. She shook her head, confused. "But you were, I swear." Walking home, I caught my reflection in a store window. For a split second, the man staring back wasn't me. His eyes held a warning, a message. I touched the birthmark on my hand and whispered, "Who am I now?" Because the truth is, I don't know if I'm still the one telling this story. The face in the badge might be staring back from somewhere else, and maybe it's already taken my place. The desert wind whispers old secrets. The Navajo say that a name is more than just a word. It's a door, a key to something that should never be opened. I don't know if I'm still myself or just another echo in the loop. Sometimes, when the night is quiet, I hear it, the metallic breath of something waiting just beyond the edges of reality. The badge lies on my desk. It gleams in the moonlight like a beacon, calling, waiting. If you've listened this far, if this story unsettled you, remember this. Some places don't obey the laws we live by. Some names are worn by more than one soul, and some loops never end. If you want to hear more voices from the shadows, more stories that blur the line between reality and nightmare, subscribe and turn on notifications. But heed my warning. Don't watch these alone. Not everything that returns wears the face you remember. Story 2. The Forbidden Ritual of the Split Moon Brotherhood. Hey everyone, it's Emma. I'm about to start something totally different this time. I got invited to a spiritual retreat. Not just any retreat, but one hidden deep in the Uinta Mountains, Utah. They say it's ancestral, some kind of old healing practice no one really talks about. Naturally, I had to say yes. The invite came through an encrypted message from someone calling themselves the Split Moon Brotherhood. They want me there for 3 days, promising a transformation, a cleanse for body and soul. Sounds perfect for my channel, right? A real escape from the usual wellness fluff. But here's the thing. Before I agreed, I looked into it. Almost nothing online. No reviews, no social media presence. Just whispers and legends, like a secret society guarding something ancient. That made me even more curious. I told myself, Emma, this is your chance to show your followers something real, raw. So I packed my bags, grabbed my camera, and started recording every step. If you want to see what happens next, subscribe and turn on notifications. Trust me, you'll want to be here for every moment. I'm flying out tomorrow, alone. No crew, no backup, just me, my camera, and whatever awaits in those mountains. Honestly, I'm nervous, but mostly excited. I have no idea what I'm really getting into, but I promise to keep you all safe with me every second. So, buckle up, because this isn't just another vlog. It's a journey into something ancient, something forbidden, and the clock is already ticking. I landed in Salt Lake City just before sunset and rented a car. The drive to the Winter Mountains took me through winding roads flanked by dense pine forests, their shadows already stretching long in the fading light. The air grew colder, thinner, like something was waiting. The retreat location wasn't marked on any map, just coordinates sent in a text. I followed them nervously, clutching my camera as the sun dipped behind jagged peaks. When I arrived, there was no sign welcoming me, just a narrow dirt path leading to a cluster of weathered cabins built from old timber, surrounded by ancient trees that seemed to lean closer the farther I walked in. I was greeted by a small group, the Split Moon Brotherhood. They looked different. Not unfriendly, but distant, like they were guarding secrets they'd sworn never to speak aloud. The leader, a man named Elias, had eyes so dark it felt like staring into a void. His voice was calm, but held an edge that sent a chill down my spine. That night, the retreat felt almost sacred. The air thick with incense and murmured chants. I noticed bones arranged in patterns, symbols carved into trees, cameras set up to record. The forest had caught something strange, a silhouette with a stag's head, moving too fluidly to be human. I tried to shake off the unease, told myself it was just part of the ritual, some elaborate performance. But as I filmed the others, preparing for the first ceremony, I caught myself wondering if I was part of something far older and darker than I realized. This wasn't just a retreat. It was an initiation, and I was already inside. The first night was unlike anything I expected. We gathered around a fire pit deep in the woods, the flames casting flickering shadows against ancient trees. The air was heavy with the smell of burning sage and something else, damp earth, something almost metallic. The Brotherhood began their chants, low, rhythmic, like a heartbeat syncing with the forest itself. Bones were laid in precise circles around the fire, their bleached surfaces gleaming eerily in the firelight. Then I saw it. A figure appeared at the edge of the clearing, tall, impossibly slender, wearing a mask shaped like a stag's head, antlers reaching skyward. It didn't speak, but its presence swallowed the sound of the chant for a moment. I raised my camera, trying to get a clearer shot. The thermal cam, set up nearby to monitor wildlife, showed something stranger. The stag figure's body flickered between cold and hot, like static on a broken screen. It moved with unnatural grace, too smooth, too deliberate. I felt a chill run through me. The Brotherhood paid it no mind, as if it was part of the ritual, maybe even the ritual itself. I wanted to ask what it was, but my throat went dry. As the chanting grew louder, the line between my fear and fascination blurred. I was no longer just a visitor. I was a participant, and there was no turning back. By the second day, the retreat began to feel like a trap. I tried to explore the surrounding forest, hoping to clear my head, but every trail I took twisted back on itself. I swear, I passed the same ancient oak 3 times, its gnarled branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. The sun hung low, but the path behind me never changed. No matter how far I walked, I was stuck in a loop. Panic crept in as the hours stretched, and the forest seemed to close tighter around me. I tried calling out, but my voice sounded swallowed by the trees. At night, the chants grew louder, echoing through the woods, as if calling me back. I wasn't sure if it was the Brotherhood or something else, something older. In my videos, I captured glimpses of that stag-headed figure again, lurking just beyond the firelight. My heart raced every time I saw it. And then came the nightmares. In my sleep, I was dragged through endless tunnels of trees, shadows clawing at my skin. I woke up drenched in sweat, hands trembling. I realized that escaping wasn't just about finding the right path. It was about breaking the loop. But how do you break something you don't understand? The forest wasn't just a place. It was a maze designed to keep me here, and maybe to keep me as something else entirely. The next morning, Elias invited me to join a special ceremony, something he called a shamanic hypnosis. I didn't want to, but the Brotherhood insisted it was essential for the transformation. I sat cross-legged in a dimly lit cabin, the air thick with incense. Elias's voice was soft, but commanding, guiding me deeper into a trance. At first, it was peaceful. I felt my mind drifting, floating above the forest, above myself. But then the visions began. I saw my own soul, fragile and glowing, being pulled toward a dark shape. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was something ancient and hungry. I watched in horror as the thing reached out with clawed hands, ripping my soul away and draping my skin over its twisted form like a costume. I could feel myself fading, becoming less real. When I snapped out of the trance, I was shaking. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body refused. The Brotherhood watched silently, their faces unreadable. That night, I checked the footage from my camera. The thermal images showed the stag figure moving closer than ever before, almost as if it was searching for me. I couldn't tell if it was hunting or protecting. What I do know is this: the retreat isn't about healing. It's about surrender, and I'm running out of time. I woke up in the snow, shivering and barefoot, the cold biting through every layer of my skin. My hands were wet, sticky with blood. I stared down, and my breath caught in my throat. My fingers weren't fingers anymore. They had become paws, clawed and furry. Panic surged through me like electricity. I tried to pull off the fur, but it clung tighter with every desperate tug. My nails had sharpened into jagged points. I scrambled to my feet, the unfamiliar weight of my body unsteady, heavy, alien. The forest around me felt alive, watching. The trees whispered secrets in a language I couldn't understand. I tried calling out, but my voice came out guttural, raw. I remembered the Brotherhood's chants, the bones arranged in circles, the stag-headed figure. I was no longer human. Every step I took felt like a betrayal to myself. The camera in my trembling hands caught my distorted reflection in a pool of icy water. Staring back was something unrecognizable. I was losing control, losing me. I ran blindly through the woods, the snow crunching beneath my paws, the cold seeping into my new skin. But no matter how far I went, I was still trapped. The forest wasn't just a prison. It was a crucible, and I was the fire, melting away what I once was. The more I tried to escape, the tighter the forest closed around me. Every path I took twisted back to the same clearing where the fire still burned from the night before, as if time itself was broken. My paws felt foreign and clumsy, but I fought against the change, desperate to hold on to whatever humanity I had left. The Brotherhood's chants echoed in my ears, haunting and relentless. At times, I caught glimpses of that stag-headed figure stalking just beyond the trees, always watching, always waiting. I called out to it, pleading for mercy or answers, but it vanished like a shadow. Sleep became a stranger. Every night brought new nightmares, visions of my soul being torn apart, my identity slipping away. I realized I wasn't just trapped physically, I was trapped mentally. The retreat wasn't just a place, it was a living, breathing entity, feeding on fear and surrender. Each failed escape attempt chipped away at my resolve. I felt myself fading, becoming something else entirely. But somewhere deep inside, a small spark of defiance remained. I wouldn't give up. Not yet. I don't know how much longer I have before the change is complete. Every mirror, every reflection feels like a betrayal. I'm losing myself, my thoughts, my voice slipping away. Tonight, I'm recording this final message. If anyone finds it, please listen carefully. The Brotherhood's ritual isn't what it seems. It's not healing, it's possession. The stag-headed figure is no spirit of nature. It's a predator, wearing my skin, waiting to replace me completely. My hands, they're no longer mine. I can feel fur creeping up my wrists, claws sharpening. I'm scared. I don't know if I can fight this. If you watch this, please don't come looking for me. Don't try to save me. I'm not sure there's anything left to save. I'm just a shell now. The forest is alive. It moves, it breathes, and it's hungry. I can hear the chants in the distance. They're coming for me. If you're watching this, be careful what you seek. Some secrets aren't meant to be uncovered, and some rituals are better left alone. Goodbye. Emma Reed's final video was uploaded automatically, hours after her disappearance. Her viewers were left in stunned silence, caught between disbelief and growing dread. The comments flooded in, speculation, fear, and theories about the split moon brotherhood and the stag-headed figure, but no one knew where Emma was or what had truly happened. Local authorities found no trace of her in the Uinta Mountains. Her rental car was abandoned at the trailhead, untouched. The Brotherhood vanished without a trace, as if they were never there. Some say the forest itself swallowed her whole. Others believe she became part of the ritual, a permanent vessel for the ancient spirit. The channel remains active, the last video looping endlessly, a chilling reminder of a story that refuses to end. And the forest, it waits patiently for the next curious soul. If there's one thing Emma's story teaches us, it's this: some mysteries are better left untouched. The Split Moon Brotherhood isn't just a group, it's a gateway to something ancient and hungry, lurking in the shadows of the Uinta Mountains. Curiosity might lead you to places you don't want to go, and once you enter the forest's loop, there may be no way out. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We bring you the darkest tales from the edges of reality, stories that will haunt you long after the screen goes dark. But beware, some stories aren't for the faint of heart. Stay safe, stay curious, and remember, not every invitation is a gift. Thank you for watching. Until next time. Story 3. The Man Who Hunted Skinwalkers and Found Something Worse. I killed a skinwalker, or at least, I thought I did. That's what I told myself as I watched the creature's body fall lifeless to the ground. But now, I'm not so sure what's real anymore. My name's Jack Murphy, and for years I've been obsessed with one thing: proving the skinwalkers aren't just stories. Growing up in the Southwest, those legends were always whispered around campfires. Creatures that could change shape, mimic voices, and walk between worlds. People dismiss them as folklore, but I knew better. I dove headfirst into Native American myths, hunting for evidence, for proof that these monsters walk among us. This obsession drove me into forbidden lands, remote forests and canyons no one dares to enter. I knew the risks, but I needed answers. And when I finally caught that creature, a hairy, bipedal thing begging for its life with a voice I'll never forget, I thought I had my proof. But that's when everything started to unravel. If you want to witness the thin line between myth and reality blur, subscribe and hit the bell. This hunt, it's far from over, because the deeper I go, the more I realize the skinwalkers don't just hunt. Sometimes they're hunters too. The first step into those forbidden lands was like crossing a threshold into another world. Arizona's deserts gave way to dense forests and jagged canyons, places where the sky feels too wide and the silence too deep. I moved cautiously, camera in hand, heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. Every sound was amplified: the crack of a twig, the whisper of wind through the pines, the distant howl of a coyote. But something else was out there, something watching. At night, the shadows seemed to stretch longer than they should, creeping closer to my campfire. I kept reminding myself to stay focused. This was no ordinary hunt. The locals warned me. The Navajo elders spoke of skinwalkers not as myths, but as curses, dark forces that could possess and destroy. I didn't want to believe. I needed proof. One night, deep in the canyon, I heard a voice calling my name, a soft, familiar whisper that stopped me cold. But when I turned, there was nothing. The deeper I went, the heavier the air became, as if the land itself was warning me to turn back. But I didn't, because somewhere in this vast, unforgiving wilderness, the truth waited, and I was ready to find it. It happened faster than I expected. There, in a narrow clearing, surrounded by towering junipers, I saw it, a creature, half hidden in the shadows, hairy, bipedal, and moving with a strange, unsettling grace. I raised my camera, heart hammering, and then, before I could second-guess myself, I fired the net launcher I'd brought. The creature stumbled, caught off guard, and collapsed. I rushed forward, breathing hard, trying to steady my hands. That's when it spoke, not in rowls or snarls, but with words, in a voice I knew too well, the voice of my mother. "Please, don't kill me," it begged, eyes wide with fear. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just some wild animal or a trick of the mind. It was something else entirely. I hesitated. My finger trembled on the trigger. My mind screamed to release it, but my obsession held me tight. The creature's eyes locked onto mine, desperate, pleading. I couldn't understand how it knew me or why it sounded like her. But one thing was certain. This hunt was no longer just about proving myths. It was about survival, because whatever this thing was, it was dangerous, and it knew me. I woke up the next morning to an empty cage. The creature was gone. No signs of struggle, no footprints, nothing. It was as if it had vanished into thin air. I searched the clearing frantically, but the only thing left was a faint, lingering scent, something earthy, like wet soil mixed with decay. I tried to tell myself it was a trap, a trick of my tired mind, but deep down, I knew better. Something was watching me, and it wasn't done. That night, strange noises echoed outside my cabin, soft whispers, laughter that sounded too familiar. I swore I heard my own name called out in the darkness. When I looked under the bed, something was there, a shadow, shifting and pulsing, too fluid to be human. I felt its eyes on me, cold and hungry. I wasn't just being hunted, I was being toyed with. The lines between reality and nightmare began to blur, and I realized I had stepped into a world where nothing was as it seemed. The skinwalkers weren't just creatures to be hunted. They were masters of fear, and now I was their prey. The shadows grew bolder. They crept into every corner of my cabin, twisting and warping like living smoke. I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind felt like a whisper from something unseen. At times, I heard sounds from my childhood, the creak of the porch swing, my mother humming lullabies I hadn't heard in decades. But when I turned, there was nothing. Once, I looked under my bed and froze. There, coiled in the darkness, was a shifting shadow. It mimicked the shape of a human, but just barely. Its eyes glowed faintly, cold and hungry. I tried to ignore it, but it stayed, watching, waiting. One night, the old radio crackled to life on its own, static at first, then a voice, mine, whispering, "I am you, and you're trespassing in my territory." My blood ran cold. I slammed the radio off, but the words echoed in my mind. Who or what was speaking through it? Was I losing my mind, or was something else inside me? The more I tried to resist, the more the line between hunter and hunted blurred. I realized I was no longer alone, and I was running out of time. The radio came alive again one stormy night, crackling with static that filled the silence like a whisper from the void. Then the voice, my voice, filtered through the interference, low and menacing. I am you, and you're trespassing in my territory. I froze. It was impossible. How could my own voice be coming from that ancient radio, the one I'd inherited from my grandfather? The words chilled me to the bone. I tried to switch it off, but the static refused to die. And then I heard it. A low growl, almost human, almost beast. It echoed from the walls, the floor, the very air around me. I realized then, the entity was inside my home, inside me. The Skinwalker was not just some creature I hunted. It was becoming me, or maybe I was becoming it. I checked my reflection in the cracked mirror. There, just for a moment, I saw something shift behind my eyes. Something wild, something ancient. I didn't know how much longer I had before the transformation was complete, but I knew one thing. I had to fight, or lose myself forever. The attic was dark, cramped, and smelled of dust and forgotten memories. I knew the entity was waiting for me there. I climbed the narrow stairs, every creak echoing through the silence. My heart thundered in my chest. As I pushed open the attic door, a shadowy figure loomed, tall, distorted, shifting between human and beast. Its eyes locked onto mine, glowing with an otherworldly hunger. For a moment, I saw my own reflection in its twisted form. I realized then the horrifying truth. I was no longer just the hunter. I was the hunted. And worse, I was becoming the very thing I sought to destroy. The creature spoke without moving its lips. You belong to me. I felt a searing pain ripple through my bones, like they were reshaping themselves. Fur sprouted beneath my skin. Claws grew where nails once were. The transformation was underway, relentless and unstoppable. I tried to scream, but the sound was guttural, animalistic. As the shadows consumed me, I clung to the last shreds of humanity. But I knew deep down there was no escape. I was lost. Days passed. Or was it weeks? Time lost meaning as the transformation took hold. My thoughts became foggy, memories slipping through my grasp like water. I could feel the Skinwalker's presence growing stronger within me, drowning out the man I used to be. I tried to write, to hold on to some thread of sanity, but the words blurred before my eyes. The forest outside my cabin seemed to mock me, its whispers turning into laughter. I was no longer a hunter, tracking a monster. I was becoming the myth. The creature I had feared, hunted, and captured was now part of me. My bones felt foreign. My skin stretched tight over something unrecognizable. I caught glimpses of myself in broken mirrors, sometimes human, sometimes beast. The battle inside raged on. Who was winning? I didn't know. All I knew was this: I was losing. If you're reading this, know that I am no longer the man I once was. My bones are no longer mine. My voice, it twists into something I don't recognize. The transformation is complete, or as complete as it can be without fully crossing over. I fought, I resisted, but in the end, the Skinwalker won. I hunted myths. Now, I am one. I don't know how long I have left before I disappear entirely. Maybe someone will find this diary and understand the warning. The Skinwalkers are real. They don't just live in stories. They live inside us. And sometimes, if you're not careful, they take over. Jack's story isn't just a tale of monsters lurking in the shadows. It's a warning, a glimpse into what happens when obsession blinds you to the darkness within. Skinwalkers aren't just legends told around campfires. They're real. They hunt. And sometimes, they don't just wear other faces. They become you. If you've been drawn into this story, be careful where your curiosity takes you. Some doors are better left unopened. If you want to explore more stories like this, tales of the unknown, the paranormal, and the thin line between myth and reality, subscribe and turn on notifications. Join us as we venture deeper into the dark, uncovering secrets that will haunt you long after the screen goes dark. Remember, in the world of shadows, the hunter can quickly become the hunted. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay curious, and never stop questioning what lurks just beyond the light. Story 4. The Night Patrol of Spirit Breaker Park. The radio crackled again, a static-laced whisper cutting through the stillness of the night. Don't look into his eyes. He knows you know. Then silence. Mike and Aaron, 2 rookie park rangers, had been assigned to the Spirit Breaker Park's Night Patrol, a vast, rugged, indigenous reservation park in northern Arizona. Known more for its legends than its tourists, the trail they were supposed to guard wasn't just closed, it was forbidden, marked off for decades, after unexplained disappearances and eerie spiritual warnings from local elders. But a recent maintenance crew had accidentally reopened it. Now, something was stirring in the shadows. Mike flipped through the old files he'd brought, faded photographs, ranger logs, and a handful of cryptic diary entries. The park had a dark history, but none of that prepared him for what awaited. On this first night, the wind whispered through the trees, like voices from another world. Aaron adjusted his radio, tension knotting his jaw. They joked nervously, trying to shake the creeping unease, but both felt eyes watching from the darkness. The forbidden trail wasn't just a path through the forest. It was a gateway, and something had stepped through. If you think you're ready to face the unknown lurking in the shadows, subscribe now and hit the bell. This story is just beginning, and trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. The sun had long disappeared behind the rugged peaks of northern Arizona when Mike and Aaron settled into their patrol. The thick canopy of Spirit Breaker Park swallowed most of the moonlight, casting long shadows that danced with every gust of wind. Mike scanned the dark horizon, gripping his flashlight tighter. The silence was heavy, too heavy. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig felt amplified, like whispers carried by the night itself. Aaron fiddled with the radio, frustration evident on his face as static hissed through the speakers. "Signal's weak," he muttered. Their footsteps crunched softly on the gravel trail as they moved cautiously toward the reopened path. Local legends clung to this place like a fog. Stories of spirits guarding the forest, warnings passed down from indigenous elders. Neither Mike nor Aaron believed in ghosts, But that night, belief felt irrelevant. Strange sounds echoed in the distance. An animal's cry, too distorted to be natural. A whispering wind that seemed to call their names. Aaron stopped, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Mike nodded, swallowing the lump forming in his throat. They pressed on, each step heavier than the last. The trail ahead seemed to twist unnaturally, as if the forest itself was reshaping around them. Unseen eyes watched from the darkness, and something was waiting. The deeper Mike and Aaron ventured into Spirit Breaker Park, the stranger everything became. Their flashlights cut through the dense forest, illuminating patches of the trail that seemed distorted, almost unnatural. Mike bent down to examine a series of footprints near the edge of the path, but something was wrong. The prints were reversed. The toes pointed backward, leading away from the direction they had come. Aaron's face paled as he spotted the torn remains of a small animal nearby. The body was mutilated with surgical precision. No blood, no struggle, just clean, precise cuts. "What the hell could do this?" Aaron whispered, voice trembling. Static began to interfere with their radios, the usual crackling growing louder and more erratic. Then came the voices, faint at first, distorted by static, but unmistakable. The voices of rangers, long missing, calling for help. Mike raised his radio to his ear, sweat beading on his forehead. "Mike! Aaron! Help us!" the voices pleaded. The hairs on the back of Mike's neck stood up. They weren't alone, and whatever was out here was toying with them. The forest seemed to close in around them, shadows deepening into shapes that flickered just beyond the edge of vision. Aaron's hand trembled as he gripped his flashlight. "We need to get out of here," he urged. But the trail behind them was no longer the same. It twisted and turned in impossible ways, as if the forest itself was alive, trapping them. And from the darkness, a figure emerged, a silhouette, eerily mimicking Aaron's voice. "Help me!" The radio crackled relentlessly, spewing static that warped into voices. Familiar, yet twisted. Mike clutched his radio tighter as Aaron's voice came through, but not as he remembered. It was distorted, hollow, pleading. "Mike, help me!" The hairs on Mike's arms stood on end. He scanned the darkness, searching for any sign of Aaron, but all he saw were shifting shadows and trees that seemed to lean closer. Aaron's unease was palpable. He whispered, "It's like the forest is alive, watching us." The voices grew louder, overlapping in a cacophony of desperate pleas and sinister laughter. Mike tried to respond, but his radio sputtered, breaking the connection. Suddenly, a chilling silence fell. Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It moved with unnatural grace, its features eerily familiar, but wrong. Its lips twisted into a cruel smile. It mimicked Aaron's voice perfectly. "Don't trust me." Mike's heart pounded. He realized they were not just being stalked. They were being hunted by something that wore their voices as masks. Paranoia took hold. Every rustle became a threat. Every shadow, a lurking predator. Mike glanced at Aaron, who was pale and shaking. "We need to find shelter," Mike said, voice low but urgent. They sprinted deeper into the forest, the voices chasing them like ghosts. The night was far from over, and the forest held more secrets than they could imagine. Mike's breath came in ragged gasps as he stumbled through the thick underbrush, heart hammering against his ribs. The distorted voices echoed all around him, slipping through the static like a sinister lullaby. Suddenly, ahead, in a faint clearing, a horrifying sight stopped him cold. Aaron was there, or at least something that looked like him. But this figure was wrong. Its skin was gone, revealing raw muscle and sinew beneath, glistening under the moonlight. It moved with jerky, unnatural motions, its eyes cold and empty. Mike's blood ran cold as he realized it wasn't Aaron, but a skinless doppelganger. Before he could react, the creature lunged. Aaron screamed, but it wasn't his voice. It was a garbled, inhuman sound. Mike barely managed to pull Aaron back, but the thing was relentless. The real Aaron's face twisted in terror as the creature's jaws closed around his arm. Mike fought with everything he had, desperation fueling his strength. But as the skinless figure tore into Aaron, Mike saw something even worse. Aaron's own voice was trapped in a guttural growl, pleading and snarling in the same breath. With a final, shuddering scream, Aaron was dragged into the shadows. Mike was left alone, trembling, the forest suddenly deafeningly silent. His mind raced. What was this thing? How could it mimic voices, faces, even flesh? And worst of all, was it coming for him next? Every instinct screamed for him to run, but he knew there was nowhere to go. The forest had already claimed one of them, and now it was hunting the other. Mike's legs pounded against the uneven ground as he tore through the undergrowth, adrenaline burning through his veins. Behind him, the twisted echoes of Aaron's screams faded, replaced by an eerie silence that pressed in from all sides. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves felt like a predator closing in. The radio in his hand crackled with static, but no voices came through. Only the oppressive hiss of the unknown. Branches clawed at his face. His breaths came ragged and shallow, and his heart threatened to burst from his chest. He didn't dare look back. The forest around him seemed to shift. The path he'd taken now, a confusing maze of shadows and dead ends. Panic clawed at his mind. He stumbled into an overgrown clearing, the moonlight revealing an old, rusted metal door, partially buried beneath tangled vines. Without hesitation, Mike yanked it open and descended into the darkness below. Inside, the air was stale and cold, but it was refuge, at least for now. Fumbling in the dark, his fingers brushed against a worn, leather-bound book lying atop a dusty crate. He flipped it open to find faded handwriting scrawled across yellowed pages. His blood ran cold as he saw the name signed at the bottom. Mike. Someone, or something, had been here before him, trapped in this nightmare. Long ago, his mind reeled as he tried to piece together what fate awaited him in the depths of this forgotten bunker. Outside, the forest whispered, patient and hungry. Mike's only chance was to face whatever lurked in the darkness, or become just another ghost in the night. Mike's eyes adjusted to the dim light as he explored the bunker's cramped interior. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. Faint echoes of distant whispers seemed to seep from the walls. He traced his fingers over rusted tools and forgotten supplies, searching for clues. The diary lay open on a cracked wooden table, its pages brittle with age. He began reading aloud, voice shaking. March 1972. This place holds secrets, darker than the forest itself. We tried to contain it, but it slipped through our grasp. I fear the same fate awaits anyone who enters. Mike's pulse quickened as he scanned further. Each entry grew more desperate, filled with warnings and fragmented accounts of terror. But one detail froze him cold. The diary's author was named Mike, his own name. The realization sent a chill through his spine. Was it a warning from the past, or a cruel trick of fate? His reflection in a broken mirror flickered, briefly revealing a face twisted by fear. The bunker's walls seemed to close in, the weight of history pressing down. Outside, the forest's whispers grew louder, more insistent. Mike understood now. This was no ordinary place. It was a prison for something ancient, something hungry, and he was trapped inside the same nightmare that had claimed the first Mike decades ago. As the wind howled above, the line between past and present blurred. Mike's fight for survival had only just begun. Mike sank onto the cold floor, the diary open in his lap. The entries painted a haunting picture. Guards lost to the forest's curse, voices trapped between worlds, and the same eerie phenomena unfolding again. Each word echoed the night around him, a timeless loop of fear and despair. One passage stood out. They say the forest reflects what lurks within us, twisting reality until hunter and hunted are indistinguishable. Mike's mind raced, questioning everything he believed. Was the entity merely a creature, or something far darker? The more he read, the more he felt the walls closing in, not just physically, but mentally. Images of himself split, duplicated, chasing shadows he couldn't escape. Outside, faint whispers seeped through the bunker walls. He shivered, sensing eyes watching, waiting. His reflection in the cracked glass stared back, fragmented and haunted. Had he already become part of this nightmare, or was the forest still testing him? The diary's final lines were a chilling plea. Beware the eyes that follow. They see your soul, and they hunger. Mike closed the book slowly, the weight of those words heavy in the stale air. The past was alive, and it had marked him. The bunker's shadows shifted as Mike prepared to make his escape. He moved cautiously, every creak of rusted metal echoing like a warning. Outside, the forest loomed, silent, watchful, and waiting. Security cameras, long forgotten but still active, captured his every move. As Mike stepped into the moonlit clearing, something impossible happened. Another Mike appeared beside him, identical in every detail. Neither blinked, neither spoke. They turned away from the cameras in perfect unison and disappeared into the darkness. The footage ended with the empty clearing, the silence thicker than ever. Back in the bunker, the diary lay open, its pages fluttering despite the still air. A final entry appeared on the screen. I am no longer alone. The forest has claimed me twice over. The cycle continued. Two identical figures vanished into the night, leaving behind questions that no one dared answer. What had the forest truly become? And what fate awaited those who walked its cursed trails? Mike's story is more than just a terrifying tale from Spirit Breaker Park. It's a stark warning about the price of curiosity and the dangers hidden in forgotten places. The forest doesn't just hide secrets, it consumes those who disrespect its boundaries. If you've felt the chill of this story, remember, some trails are best left unexplored. If you want to dive deeper into the mysteries that lurk just beyond the light, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Join us as we uncover more chilling encounters, strange legends, and unsolved horrors from the darkest corners of the world. Because in the end, the question isn't if the forest is watching. It's what happens when it decides to follow. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, but stay safe.